In this video, we will continue to talk about rendering in VANTAGE, and we're gonna study how we can create interior rendering. So in the previous video, we concentrated our attention on an exterior and on how to set up the camera, the post-production effects, render settings, and also lights, materials, and objects. So we did a kind of a review of everything. And this is also something that we're gonna do here. We're gonna also use a physical exposure of the camera instead of the standard value exposure. So we're gonna study a little bit more about cameras and how they work and how we can change the exposure, the intensity of the lights, and so on, so that everything gets well balanced, and then we have a nice final results also for interiors. So we're gonna also see some tips and tricks on how to set up and optimize as well the interior scene. We're gonna use this one here from Sketchpub, and this is the name if you wanna use it, or you can use any other interior if you want. And that's the author right there. That's the other information that you can find. If you're interested in this model, you will find it. And this is a kind of a scanning of an interior, so it looks really detailed and it doesn't need furniture or furnishing or, well, chair, tables, or anything. Everything is just right there. And this is probably in real life illuminated just by the natural light coming from the windows. So this is a first effect that we're going to try to achieve using fake lights, fake natural lights, because as you can see, this is a closed box, so we cannot use natural light or ambient light or sunlight with this scene right here. So we need to, like, again, simulate or fake the natural light using other type of lights that we can find. You can see those big windows right there. Probably this is an interior that it's only illuminated by natural light, doesn't have other lights on apparently. So we're gonna try to simulate that. So we saw how we can work with lights in other videos. We talked about portal lights when we want to bring in more lights from the exterior, but portal lights also in V-Ray, they work with environment. So in this case, we need to create a rectangular light to fake that natural light. Now, usually exteriors are easier to set up there than interiors because they only have natural light, and that's enough light for an exterior. And we saw different examples here on how we can set up night scene, day scene, and so on. These are previous lessons from the video course where we also investigate more about the HDRI techniques and how to set up a studio, and again, interiors, exteriors, day and night scene. Now in this scene, you can see right here that we also work with the depth of field and the focus and autofocus part of the scene. This is another really realistic effect that we can also use in interiors. Probably works better in interiors. Now in the previous lesson, we actually worked in a night scene. Well, sometimes you need to increase a lot the quality of the render if you want to have nice results, depending on how heavy and how many polygons you have in the scene. This is why scenes usually needs to be optimized. So we went through all of these things during the course, so probably right now you are more expert than where you started. So we're gonna just continue to see how we can use the same tools, but this time in our interior. And just want to show you here these different renderings of the previous scene. And you can see that most of the model looks fine, but when you have less light, so in a night scene or an interior, it's more difficult to have nice results and high quality results because global illumination rendering needs light. So you can see I have made different examples here. So if you increase the quality by increasing the resolution and the sample per pixels and the rate bounces, you're gonna have more quality, but you're gonna need to wait longer for the final result. So you can see here there is difference from previous renderings. I have more details there on the railing. The railing is really difficult to render because it's really complex. And with artificial lights, without natural light, it's giving a lot of issues. So we need to really increase a lot the samples per pixels. We're gonna need to work with pixels. We're gonna need a higher resolution like 2K or 4K to solve that really complex part of the scene. So complex geometry often results in, you know, strange things happening in terms of lighting, especially if you're working again with night scenes and interior. So you need to increase a lot the render settings. You can see here the same scene, but in the day scene, we can see there that it looks way better than the night scene. So again, exteriors in day scenes, they work better. They are simpler, easier, and faster to set up and also to render. So this is just to recap what we have done so far and how you can improve the previous renderings. Now here we're gonna start to work with lights. You can see I already have a rectangular light that it's emitting. Otherwise we would see here total black because we don't have any light. So I've already added a rectangular light and also the depth of field. So we can still work with the depth of field as we worked previously. Sometimes depth of field is handy and helpful to hide some of the issues, some of the strange things that happen in a render. You can see that the chandelier right there does have some strange geometry. So with the depth of field and putting that out of focus, I can fix that. Now in an interior, probably we want to have more panoramic view than a telescopic view like that. So you can see that also the depth of field effect changes using different field of views. So everything is connected. And especially if you use physical exposure, now also the depth of field will be connected to the settings that we're going to use that actually are available in real life cameras. So these are real life parameters: the film speed or ISO, the f number, and the shutter speed. Now all these parameters, they have different purposes, but every one of those will influence the light in the scene, the intensity, just like the exposure. So if we want to make it fast, we can go there and work with the exposure, but we're gonna set that to almost 0 so we can focus on the real physical exposure that we can set up from the camera settings. And you can see there, if I change the film ISO, I can start to change the exposure. So ISO film speed, you can see here, it's basically the sensibility of your camera. So sensitivity of your camera. So it's gonna basically affect how many brightness there will be in your camera. F number is an aperture of the shutter. So the more it will be open, the more light will come in, and also the more depth of field effect you will have. And this is again how they work in real life. And you can find all the information here, all the settings that you need just by searching in Google. I'm just giving you the main terms, and then you can go there and find a lot of examples on how you can set up the f number or the f-stop parameter in your real life camera. And so this is an example here. So the shutter speed, again, it's about the shutter, but this time it's how fast the shutter will go. If it's gonna be real fast, it's gonna capture all the movements. You're not gonna have a motion blur. Instead, if you're going really slow, more light will get in your camera, so the scene will be brighter, but also you will have a more motion blur effect. And this is, you know, just the basics. You need to know at least these 3 really important parameters to manage correctly the physical exposure, and also motion blur and the depth of field effect. They all are balanced together, they are related, connected, so you need to